And welcome to my kitchen on this Saturday, November 11th, 2023, which of course is Veterans Day. And there are, of course, many celebrations going on. Well, I don't know if celebration is the right word. I suppose it is because it's really meant to celebrate our veterans, of course. Serving serving our country, and that's all very good, of course. It's all. I myself am something of a fan of history, and when it comes to this day, I'm looking to the other major reason why November 11th is special, and that would be Armistice Day, which was the day that World War I officially came to an end with the Treaty of Versailles. I won't go too much into the history. I'm rather here, of course, for the baking, or the cooking, rather. In that I'm just remembering that day by putting together a cake that was often made during those days to be served or shipped, I should say, to soldiers who were serving in the and possibly some of the worst combat conditions in the history of the world. Because that would be, first of all, trench cake, as mentioned in in the title of this video. That is an interesting recipe from World War I that I have been meaning to try, and today, of course, is a good day to do this. It was made really in the idea of a cake being made during that time, the 1910s to 1914 to 1918. And as such, I looked through my cast iron collection, and I really didn't seem to find a baking pan that really matches those days, unfortunately. I mean, I've got a fair number of vintage pans from the World War II era, the Great Depression in the 1940s. The only pan I seem to have from World War I was my Griswold Erie number 8, and that might actually be too big for this recipe. So I'm going to go instead in the other direction and get out my cornbread pan, which is a gate marked number 7 size pan that I've called Lucky many times. But yeah, anyway. This cake doesn't seem to be very large. Most of the recipes for this seem to call for a single cake tin for making a single layer cake, and that's why I figured this would be the right size for it. So yeah, again today, and so I'll be getting this ready and thinking about the history behind, well, as I mentioned, World War I, which I guess could be said as was one of the most tragic wars in all of human history. I mean, granted, all wars are tragic, but I mean, it's like how World War II, for instance, is generally considered to be a war where we actually was, for the most part, we were going there for a specific reason, namely to defeat the Nazis more than anything else. Nazis and Japan, but World War I, unfortunately, began more for, I shouldn't say stupid, but more for political reasons than anything else, because all of Europe was embroiled with all of these ridiculous alliances in which countries agreed to go to war to help one another, to the point where it only took one spark in the powder keg, the assassination of a what was it then? Austria-Hungary. That's right. That country or empire. The Archduke Ferdinand, I think it was. I'm not going to go all too detailed into the history of World War I because I'm not very good at it. And anyway, folks are more interested in the baking than anything else. So for that, I'm sifting 2 cups of flour. But yes, I mean, essentially it was because of the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary that really touched off the whole thing, because that led to countries one country declaring war on another country, and then its allies doing the same thing to jump in because they were obliged to because of their alliances, and so it went back and forth, and in a very short time, a large part of Europe found itself at war with one another. And that's how it was for a good 3 years or so. And of course, the battlefield tactics used during that day were atrocious because, of course, that involved trench warfare, and those of us who know anything at all about about trench warfare know that it was. I mean, essentially, it was largely a 3-year stalemate with two sides just basically massacring huge numbers of soldiers on one side or another for the sake of just gaining barely inches of ground. And as I said, I won't get into that into too much detail, but yeah, it was really not a good. Well, no wars are good, but this one was definitely one of the worst. Anyway, I've sifted 2 cups of flour, and into this I'm going to be putting about 4 ounces of margarine. And yes, I did say margarine because I'm trying to be consistent with the recipe from that time, because food rationing, as folks know, was very, food rationing was really prevalent for many countries during World War I, and that included the U.S. And so as a result, things like eggs and actual butter and dairy products were pretty scarce. And so really, World War I, in fact, increased the use of margarine by a great deal. And so margarine's popularity really soared during those days, which is why we are using margarine here. Funny how the internet, of course, will always go crazy whenever I say, oh no, I'm cooking with margarine. That, of course, is a subject for another time, because I have indeed laughed at some of the ridiculous things that they say about margarine, which are simply not true. And that's about all I'm going to say at this point, because, again, we're here more to pay tribute to the folks who served and many who died during World War I. There are, of course, no living survivors, or no living veterans, I should say, of World War I. The last of them passed away, I believe it was around the early 1990s, the very final few who had lived to be over 100 years old. So, yes, World War I rather, is entirely consigned to history. And within, like, maybe the next couple of decades or so, we're going to be able to say the same thing about World War II. No, that's not a good thing, but that's history, and that's how it goes. And hello as well, by the way, to the folks who've been kind enough to show up here this morning. Okay, Cast Iron Fanatic. Oh yeah, that's right. Mostly antique malls or Facebook Marketplace. Yes, Cast Iron Fanatic. Yeah. Again, cast iron from the 1910s is not really that easy to find. That largely has to do, of course, with the scrap iron drives of some of World War I, but especially of World War II, where a lot of vintage cast iron was indeed salvaged and scrapped for the war effort. So that's why I'm going with a gate mark pan instead. Anyway, I have mixed together that margarine and the maybe I should get like a knife or something. Where is my knife? Here it is. That margarine and the flour for the base of the cake. This is actually a pretty easy cake to do. In fact, just sifting all of this together was probably the hard part. The other thing, and actually I realized I should have done this before, but because the wet ingredients involve, yeah, that's right. Funny how this particular recipe all calls for 1/4 pint of milk, which would be about 1/2 cup. Yay for math. And to this we mix in, oh, I forgot my vinegar. I thought I had everything. Here it is. Of course, that's what it's like for doing a live cooking video, especially in my kitchen. To a teaspoon of vinegar, yeah, because we're going to be curdling milk here. And I actually do that a lot, so you should be familiar with seeing this. 1 teaspoon. Here it is. Okay, because there we go. Again, sour milk was again a common ingredient used during up to the early 20th century or so, and so that's why we use curdled milk for that. To this, interestingly enough, and this is the first time I've seen this done in a recipe, we're also putting in a half teaspoon of baking soda, bicarbonate of soda, and we're adding it directly to the milk and vinegar. So, so this is interesting, but apparently this is so that it will activate it right away and help the cake to rise, although apparently this cake doesn't rise very much. So in they go. And then from there, oh, that's the other thing I forgot. About 3 ounces of brown sugar. I thought I had all my ingredients out. Well, it's not too hard to get, fortunately. I do my best to try to keep an organized kitchen, which is why I can do this as quickly as I can. 3 ounces of brown sugar. Alright, that means I'll have to estimate about a 1/4 cup or so, and that might even be more than 3 ounces of brown sugar, but that should be enough. To this, yeah, by the way, you notice I'm using very small amounts of these ingredients. As I said, food rationing was pretty strict in those days, and really they used very small amounts in this cake. To this, we also use 2 teaspoons of cocoa powder. So, that's good. It looks like I get to break out a new container of cocoa. I guess I must have used up my last one. Yay. Just in time for the holidays. Alright. Throw this out. But once again, thank you for coming here on a Saturday morning, folks. I'm not, as always, and hello to Pat Z, Rocket Caver, Rick Stumbow, and Cynthia, all of the regulars, I know. I'm not asking anybody to drop what they were doing and then go and just to do this. Let me see, the teaspoon is now wet, so, no, it's the half teaspoon. Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to fake it and do just a little less than a tablespoon of cocoa powder. There we go. All right, and then from there, well, let me cover this so I don't spill it. Put together some spices, which in this case is which is nutmeg and ginger. And I'm thinking I might throw a little bit of allspice in there as well. So we do about half a teaspoon of ginger powder, which is 2/4 teaspoons. Again, my half teaspoon is wet. And to this, we also do half a teaspoon of nutmeg. And as I said, I think I will also throw in some allspice as well. And then from this, I might even throw in a little bit of cinnamon too. Make it kind of like a Christmas type of cake. Which means, hey, I get to break out my spice grinder. Neat. I mentioned before that I'm a big fan of grinding my own nutmeg, so here are a couple of pieces of nutmeg that should come up to about half a teaspoon. And to that, I'll throw in about half a teaspoon of allspice berries. Yeah, as I mentioned, within the last couple of years or so, I've become more of a fan of grinding my own spices. I don't grind all of them, but Some of them I find very convenient to do so. Maybe a little bit more, so I don't hear that. There we go. Now I'm not hearing anything hard in there. Okay, good. So there we go. We've got our allspice and our nutmeg. All right. Let's unplug the spice grinder just to be safe. Ugh. Yeah, you too. Okay, get that out of the way. And then finally to this, I'll throw in about a teaspoon of cinnamon. And that's all for the dry ingredients. This is the 1/4 teaspoon again. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Because in fact, this is not going to take much longer. The cake is going to go into the oven, and some recipes say the cake should bake for 2 hours, but others say that modern day ovens are much better, and so the cake will only need to bake for about an hour. Either way, that's too long for this live video. You know, this is not Cast Iron Wednesday. I'm not going to keep everybody here for an hour or more, or an hour and a half, or whatever it is. I will, though, show the cake as it comes out of the oven. As I said, this seems to be like a pretty easy recipe, so I'm not especially worried. There we go. Interesting smell to this with these spices, that's for sure. Alright. That means I should probably, in fact, grease the pan before I put the final batter together. So let's do that. So once again, this is Lucky, my gate-marked number 7 pan, which I use largely for cornbread, and as such, this is good enough for baking a cake, or at least a single-layer cake, which is what this will turn out to be. The trench cake was meant to be, use what ingredients people had, and it was also meant to be very durable so that it could be shipped to soldiers usually serving overseas. So that's why I'm not especially worried. On the other hand, what I am worried about is the cake sticking. Where did that just go? I had cut out a circle of parchment paper. Here it is. Okay. I've cut out some parchment paper just to be sure that this cake doesn't stick. There we go. All right. Now that we've done that, let me quickly wash my hands. Move some of this mess aside, like the Crisco and the vinegar. Just put this back over here. Okay, put these away as well. All right, now I think we're ready to mix our ingredients together. This doesn't seem right, if you ask me. I mean, this does not seem like a lot of liquid. Let me check that recipe again. Yeah, that's exactly what it says. 2 cups of flour, margarine, the sugar, and it says 1/4 pint of milk, which is, again, half a cup, and that's exactly what this is. So I guess all I can do is trust it. Let's give it a try. Maybe I should do it in parts just to be sure. Anyway, if it seems too dry, well then I guess I'll have to add more milk, won't I? I mean, yeah, I mean, look at this. This barely took up anything at all. That cannot possibly be right. So I may have to mix more milk into this. Well, I don't know. It does look like it is coming together. I'd still have to say, though, this seems like a very, very dry cake. I do my best to get it all mixed. I mean, this is much drier than cornbread, for instance. And what is it? What am I making? The recipe is called trench cake. A cake made especially to be sent to soldiers serving during World War I. But as you can see, this is a very, I mean, okay, I've got some kind, it looks like a dough right now. And I'm debating whether I think I may want to add a little bit more milk to this, because this seems awfully dry if you ask me. I'm sure it'll actually, you know, considering that it was meant to be shipped out to be shipped, maybe this is exactly how it should be. I think I might have to trust the recipe. I chose a recipe anyway that has over 130 comments on it, so or star reviews anyway. So I guess we'll have to see what happens. All right, that means in we go. Basically, if it doesn't turn out well, then I will have learned something. Okay. But yes, as I mentioned, World War I, I mean, again, this cake was meant to be served to soldiers in the trenches of World War I, usually shipped from families and the like. So, and with that, as I said, this thing is supposed to bake for 2 hours, but from the looks of it, it will probably be done after 1 hour. And yeah, I think I did choose the right size pan. This number 7 pan seems like it's fitting very nicely. So, I guess let me get this into the oven, and I'll say just a couple of things, and then we'll be done. All right, but once again, thank you everybody for taking a few time. I do the same thing. I want to fix before trying, then I give into the recipe thinking I can change next time if needed. Yes, exactly, Anita. That's exactly what I did. I was gonna say, and dark greens. Is the cake batter consistently? Yeah, as I said, it seemed awfully thick. However, it did come together. And again, my thought is just that, is that this is the type of cake that was meant to be shipped through the mail. And we're talking like delivery in, again, the World War I era, the 1910s. So I can only assume that it was meant that way so that the cake would be extremely durable. So I will have to trust that. Speaking of which, it's now 11 o'clock, so at around noon or so, that cake will be done. But yes, I mean, again, all I can do is remember the history of World War I, as can we all, because as I said, there are no living veterans left from World War I. So I just remember it as just that, a very, in fact, they often gloss over it, unfortunately, in the history classes, because, of course, World War II was much more appealing. But, yeah, because, again, World War I was started really for political reasons. It was, it was terrible in that so many soldiers lost their lives for really no reason at all. We know about trench warfare and how just that it was largely a big stalemate for 3 years or so until really they finally brought the United States into the war, and quite literally the United States charged in and ended the war after only a year or so. I mean, that sounds like typical American boasting, but in this case, as best as I can tell, it actually turned out to be true. So that was why, as well, in World War II, one of the songs they sang was "We did it before and we can do it again." Well, it turned out that way. It was definitely took longer than it did with World War One. So, nonetheless, though, I also remember, one of my other great passions of my life, of course, was J.R.R. Tolkien. And I am mentioning him because, interestingly, because he was, in fact, a World War I combat veteran. He actually served in one of the most tragic battles of World War I, the Battle of the Somme in southern France. And that was one of those trench warfare campaigns where the battle lasted for months, literally had 1 million casualties. 1 million soldiers on both sides died in that over that 4-month period. Tolkien himself, he was actually apparently he was injured in a gas attack. He didn't, not a bullet wound or anything like that. But as a result, he was actually in a hospital during recovering from when he actually started writing his famous mythology of Middle Earth. I won't get too much into that because, again, my point is World War I, not J.R.R. Tolkien, but it's interesting to me anyway to think of that. But the fact was that he was a combat veteran there, and he lost many of his companions in that battle, as did many people. It really left a scar on pretty much the entire world. Even today, at least in some places, you can still find memorials to World War I. Though, as I said, it's largely been overshadowed by World War II, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you might say it, because World War II was an even greater disaster in many ways than World War I. Yet there are still areas of north of Europe, even today, that are considered to be too dangerous for people to travel in, and those areas still have unexploded ordnance buried in the ground. Unexploded shells, mines, and the like. There are some areas that are cordoned off even today because of the danger of that, and the effort to decontaminate, for lack of a better word, these areas continues even today. Yes, hello as well to Cynthia Wesley and Pawpaw Dan. Pat Z, my dad's parents fought in World War I. They met in a hospital where my grandmother was a nurse and my grandfather was recovering from a gas attack. Yeah, that was the other thing. Chemical warfare in World War I was notorious. So yeah, there are a lot of tragic things to say about that, and that, I guess, is one reason why I like to remember that particular, well, not remember, but I guess honor the history of that particular time today here on Veterans Day. Because yes, there are many celebrations of Veterans Day taking place today, and that is all good. And there's still plenty of time as well in the day for us to remember, all of our veterans, including ones who are still alive and who have served their country. And I definitely give a salute to them. That includes my brother. My brother is a 20-year Army veteran, and he served in both of the Gulf Wars, the first and the second one. So I definitely have personal experience in that respect. And yet, maybe it's because of my, really because of my cast iron collection, and that I've gotten some more interested in history, especially over the past decade or so, which is why, again, I wanted to take a few minutes anyway to just think about and remember World War I and what they call the war to end all wars, which it wasn't. And really just to take a moment to think of all the people who served and of the so many lives that were tragically lost. And that's really about all I can say, I think. Because, yeah, that does cover it as well, I think. And sending blessings to Pawpaw Dan, and give our best. He's got his new glasses, but not helping much. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, attention CIC, Papa Dan asked Rick and I, oh, that's what I was talking about. Pass a message that he is fine and do be with us on lives, but cannot respond due to vision. And again, my condolences to Papa Dan for that. Rick Stumbow, I had Scottish oatmeal with blueberries, cherries, and banana, a dash of coconut milk, and a pat of butter. Well, that sounds like a nice breakfast. Earlier today, as you saw, I had the urge to try something different, and I made this recipe from the Great Depression for so-called pancakes made from crushed saltine crackers. It was okay. I mean, I finished it, and it tasted pretty good. Yes, I would not exactly call that a hitting the ball out of the park type of recipe. So I'm glad I've tried it. I'll probably never make it again, but I mean, I like saltines, I like butter, so it was easy enough. But this, on the other hand, I hope this cake does turn out all right, but we will certainly find that out in about another maybe 50 to 45 minutes or so. So with that, I guess all I can do now is just say hi to everybody, and thank you very much for showing up. And if this cake turns out to be successful, I could even edit this video down into a YouTube short video too, just to summarize it. But nonetheless, thank you for being here this morning as I take a few minutes to remember World War I. Yeah, the great metal drive took a lot of cast iron and other things. Yes, it did. That is another one of those things that cast iron aficionados argue over. For I've gotten a fair amount of flack, as I've mentioned, when I made a video about gatemark and 19th century cast iron, and I used the word disposable to describe those pans in those days. Because while it's certainly true that when a family had a cast iron pan, I mean, it was certainly not disposable. It was cherished and often passed down. In many ways, it was disposable, both in that the retailers generally considered cast iron pans to be cheap throwaway items. You know, the stuff that it was sold pretty cheaply or included as accessories when you bought a wood-burning stove. Not to mention the fact that, as you just mentioned, the scrap iron drives that, I mean, frying pans were among the first things that people donated, because you could always go and buy another one. That's why I use the term disposable to describe them. What was even more disposable in those days? Lids. I mean, you know how cast iron pans can be hard to find, and lids can be even harder to find. Well, that's because, of course, lids were considered to be disposable generally, because after all, you can cook in a frying pan without a lid, but it's much harder to cook in a lid without a frying pan. So as it's Veterans Day, first, Kimberly Miller, first of all, thank you to all the veterans. I now need to be a proud mama and brag about my son. Okay, he is in the Air Force and is stationed in South Carolina. He met 2 homeless vets. Oh, well, congratulations to your son then. Yes, I'll definitely say you can brag about that. At Walmart down there, and he took them inside and bought them food and water and a couple of pairs of sweat outfits. Well, that's nice. And thank you as well to Rick Stumbow. And yeah, if you look around, if you look on Google, you can see that there are a bunch of restaurants that often have Veterans Day specials for veterans today. So yeah, I mean, if you have a veteran in your family, take advantage of it. You know, get a free meal or a discount or something, and enjoy the day, which is, I guess, the best we can say. And I think that about covers it as well. Yeah, congratulations to all of you who do have veterans in your family. And, well, obviously, let's wish good health to everybody. And hopefully there will be no more wars out there like World War I or World War II or the Gulf War or any war. But if it happens, well, that's why we have our veteran. That's why we have our military. And that's about all I need to say about that. So I can only thank everybody again for showing up. And I will show the cake when it is revealed in about maybe 45 minutes. So thank you again to everybody. And we will catch you all later. Thank you very much for stopping by this morning. And have a good day.